Okay, here we go. Stand by. 3, 2, 1.
The thinking atheist. It's not a person. It's a symbol. An idea.
The population of atheists in this country is going through the roof.
Rejecting faith. Pursuing knowledge. Challenging the sacred.
If I tell the truth, it's because I tell the truth. Not because I put my hand on a book and made a wish.
And working together for a more rational world.
Take the risk of thinking for yourself. Much more happiness, truth, beauty, and wisdom will come to you that way.
Assume nothing. Question everything. And start thinking. This is the Thinking Atheist Podcast. Hosted by Seth Andrews.
Your calls, you pick the topic, tell me what you want to talk about today, and we shall give it a shot. I have to talk about this. I just saw that there is a documentary on, I think it's Netflix, called Life After Flash. Now, let me set this up. I was in junior high, I guess, back in 1982, when the Dino De Laurentiis classic Flash Gordon starring Sam Jones released. And this was a film dripping with cheese. It was me, my friend Joe, and Steve. We all went to a theater, the Fox Theater on Harvard in Tulsa, Oklahoma. Theater's not even around anymore. We went at noon, and we left at like 8 o'clock. We watched 3 consecutive showings of Flash Gordon with the Queen soundtrack, Flash, right? Well, they have made, and by the way, I own it on Blu-ray, and I'm having a screening at my house next week. So they have made a documentary about Sam Jones. Life After Flash, a documentary 35 years in the making. Gordon's alive. I have to watch this. It's the little things in life. Anyway, go look for it if you were one of those people who, even now when it's on, you crank it up. But yeah, it's ridiculous. That's part of the charm of it. Let's start here at the switchboard. As promised, you pick the topic. We'll go to area code 204. You're on the Thinking Atheist Podcast. Who's this?
Hi, my name is Ines.
What's going on, my friend?
I've got a 7-year-old son, and I live in basically like the Bible Belt of Canada. I live in southern Manitoba, and everything is just church this and church that. And I want to send him to camp. And the only camps I can find in the area are Bible camps. And I'm having a tough time trying to figure out if I should send him to that.
Yeah. I would be very wary because a great many church camps are really indoctrination houses, right? They have on the website. In fact, we've done a whole broadcast. I can send you the link about religious summer camps. You know, they've got the canoeing and the rock climbing and the crafts and the fun and the games and the frisbee and the lake and all that stuff. And they put that on the brochures. And then once they get your kid, they do all the fun stuff, but they frame it in this sort of religious construct where there are services and prayers and scriptures and, of course, the salvation message, sometimes even missions training. And so I think for you, if you really want your kid to go, I would recommend that you go find out how intense the church camps are. Are they just hosted by a church, but it's really mostly fun and games and they might pray before a meal? You can probably get in front of that. If it's 2 weeks of church with guilt and shame and Jesus and heaven and hell and all that stuff, I would stay clear. Is there a way to vet these programs at all from the outside?
Well, my wife brought home a couple of pamphlets, and the only thing I could think of to do would be to call them. It's just like there is one camp that's non-religious, but it's filled right up already. So I don't know anybody that's gone to these camps.
Yeah, there may be some supply and demand lessons going on there, huh? I mean, I remember summer camp here when I was growing up, and it was, honestly, they did church in the morning, they did church midday, they did church in the evening, And it was miserable. And so the motivation to send your kid to church camp is to make memories, to socialize, to enjoy the summer, to be a kid. And, if they're out of your care and out from under your watch, and there's a church calling the shots, and there's any chance that that kid's going to get the full treatment, I'd be very wary of that. How old's your child, may I ask?
He's going to be turning 8 in a couple of months, and I've never, I don't even know how to talk to him about religion. Man,
I'm not Yoda on this subject, but if I can hear the people in the audience probably backing me up on this just seems like a dangerous thing. The cost benefit on having a church be a steward of your child in an environment where churches often use activities, fun, games, connection, those types of things, music, to sell superstition. That's going to be something that an 8-year-old is going to have perhaps some difficulty processing. So I don't have a solution if there's no Camp Quest in your area, but I can certainly put the feelers out here in the comment sections. Maybe there's somebody. Tell me what part of Canada that you're looking at now.
I live in southern Manitoba.
Okay.
Right on the border with North Dakota, actually.
Do me a favor, send me an email, Seth@thethinkingatheist.com. And if there's someone else in the listening audience who has a solution that I do not, so use the same email and maybe I can connect you guys. Okay. Seth@thethinkingatheist.com. I'll see if I can lean on the expertise of those who are closer to this situation than I am. Would that be all right?
That would be awesome. Thank you very much, Seth.
All my best to you and your son. And I appreciate you so much for listening. Thank you.
I really appreciate everything that you do, Seth. You really keep me on the straight and narrow just with, even with your ramblings.
Well, I think it's therapy, right? We're all sort of sitting around the table just reminding each other that we're not alone and we're not crazy. And if you're getting that out of the broadcast, then that's all I got to hear. So thank you, my friend.
Thank you. You have a good day.
All right. Take care. Area code 541. You're on the Thinking Atheist podcast. Who's this?
Hey, Seth. This is Cord.
What's going on, my friend? What's on your mind?
Well, is there an unhealthy amount of skepticism in the atheist community?
Is there an unhealthy amount of skepticism? Well, let's make sure we're speaking about the same thing. What would you consider to be unhealthy skepticism?
I believe if we're after truth, I'm human, just like you, and we share the same truth because we are in the same dimension. What I propose to know is truth because it affects both of us. So if when I'm listening to people with opinions on a subject, it's so extremely biased that it'll be skeptic to the point of irrationality.
Well, I don't know if I would call that skepticism. I think I understand what you mean by this. I'll phrase it back to you and you tell me if I'm close to the bullseye, okay? You're talking about people who call themselves skeptics, but they are so quote-unquote skeptical that they won't accept quantified facts. They won't accept anything that is supported strongly by evidence. And they call it skepticism to be skeptical of even the most widely accepted scientific truths. Would that be an accurate way? Am I talking about what you're talking about?
That was close to what I am talking about.
No, I want to know what you're talking about, so help me paint the picture for me. If someone has an unhealthy skepticism, what are we talking about?
If I say there's a dog behind the couch, and it is, but you will not believe for any good reason. I could walk behind the couch, show the dog. Maybe you can even be looking at the dog. I don't know. But you don't believe in it. What is that? Is that really an unbelief, or is that a agenda?
I mean, do I think that there are in the atheist community people who are rejecting known
people
facts?
In general, because it's not really just atheists. It's people in general having a hard time trying to look at life through different perspectives because there's a lots of life structure that keeps our identity flowing along easily by accepting the narrative that we've built our whole life, baby. And sometimes when we break that, it's too traumatizing.
I mean, if you want to call it skepticism when someone is not prepared to accept a fact, no matter how much evidence is there.
Almost like not being truthful.
Hang on. If the dog is behind the couch and
Yeah.
You say, let's turn around. We will then verify visually the dog is there. We will go and with tactile contact confirm that the dog is physically there. We will measure the dog. We will test and retest that the dog is behind the couch.
Sounds like an experiment.
Okay. If you are not prepared to accept that fact, I don't know if I would call that skepticism.
That's what my call is about, and that's all I really was wondering.
Do I think there are people who can talk themselves into and out of about anything because they have bias, because they're hardwired for specific things, and we have to override our evolutionary predispositions? Yes. And I think the scientific method is a great tool to do that very thing. It's a process that is designed to remove bias and human error. Yeah. And while imperfect,
which is obviously what we need because we can't do it otherwise. Sorry over you. I just talked.
All right, that's no worries. Well, I appreciate the call. I mean, I hope I remotely answered your question. I'm still not sure I understand the question, but I think I get it.
I think we're good.
All right, take care of yourself, brother.
All right, you too.
All right, bye. I mean, are there people who, no matter how much evidence you show them, they simply won't believe it, they won't accept it, and they call that skepticism? Sure. I mean, I buy that just as part of the human condition, and it usually comes down to defending sort of a pre-accepted idea, notion, belief, or maybe it's a distrust of the system, other biases in play, some sort of a cultural influence. I'm not a psychologist, but I do know that as human beings, we are very prone to bias. We're very prone to seeking confirmation and being quote unquote skeptical about the things that don't confirm what we already believe. The scientific method then remains a great way to sort of get around that system. Area code 717. You are on the Thinking Atheist podcast. Who is this?
This is David.
David, welcome to the show, my friend. How are you?
Thank you. I'm well. And you?
I'm good. What's on your mind?
Well, first, you mused whether you remotely answered the previous caller's question. I thought I would let you know that when you answer questions over the phone, you technically answer all the questions remotely.
Sorry. Yeah, okay. Okay. I'll give you a quarter for that.
Thank you. I'll spend it wisely.
All right. Yeah, don't spend it all in one place.
Your previous caller also reminded me of a friend of mine. He's a little bit of a conspiracy theorist, sometimes a lot of bit of a conspiracy theorist. And I've coined him a hipster skeptic because he's willing to look into the evidence, but only if the evidence is not mainstream.
Like mainstream science is all part of some sort of vast Illuminati-like conspiracy, and it's the outsiders, the people who escaped, the people trying to subvert the man. Those are the people who are more to be trusted.
Exactly. So I'm hoping that'll catch on. Hipster skeptic.
What do you think drives that?
I wish I knew, but that actually leads to the real question I intended to ask when I called.
Yeah.
I got another message recently from someone else, and that person outlined that they believe there are very good evidential reasons to believe in God, and they seem to be coming from a Christian tradition. They didn't spell out all the details for me. There's even a chance that they might be a young earth creationist, but I haven't asked yet. But what's perplexing about that is that this person also has a bachelor's degree in biology, and they're currently with me in a master's program for mathematics and statistics. So this is not an uneducated person. I have no training in biology myself, and I always find it vexing when I encounter someone who's well-trained in biology or well-trained in history because they technically know more than I do. The preponderance of evidence and expert consensus would say that they're incorrect, but they do know more than I do. So what's your advice when you're confronted with someone who is probably wrong and yet knows more than you?
Well, are you in a religious institution? I mean, how does someone who is studying biology end up a young earth creationist? I think a true exploration into what biology is would require a grasp and understanding of evolutionary processes in order for it to be a complete and honest foray into the field. So do you feel that this person is simply skipping over those parts in the biology text and lessons?
All I have to go on from that person is a short message, so I can't really answer any questions beyond what I've told you.
Yeah.
So I'm hoping you can take the question more in a general way. When someone has specific training in biology or history, or when they simply just present you with a lot of details that you're not personally familiar with, what's a good way to handle that situation?
Always.
When, again, the preponderance of consensus and evidence would say that they're wrong, but the specific claims that they're making are ones that you're not prepared to answer.
Well, I've had this conversation with scientists, and I say I find myself apologizing in science-related conversations because I am not a PhD. I'm not a biologist. I'm not a cosmologist. I'm not a paleontologist. And yet I want to participate honestly in conversations about these things, and I want to learn more about them every day. And the scientists will tell me that, science is not a degree. Science is not something you hang on your wall inside a frame. Science is a way of living. It's a way of determining what is true. And in that way, we can all be scientists. To a degree, we do have to sort of lean on the shoulders of the experts with the reality in place that the experts are always fact-checking each other. I heard it said once that people don't get famous by proving somebody else's findings right. They get famous by proving somebody else's findings wrong. I mean, there's a system in place where these scientists are testing and retesting. That's like when somebody comes out and says, hey, we're this close to developing cold fusion and fixing the planet's energy problems. That's a scientific claim made by quote unquote scientists. Well, it took the scientific community about 3 seconds to debunk that. And that's the system working. You're not going to find a lot of young earth creationist biologist experts out there, and I think we can lean to the experts we do have to be able to find the information to have those conversations. And if you don't know the answer when somebody says, hey, I have this, and they start to gish gallop you to death, I think the best and most honest tactic is not to try to make something up or scramble or feel embarrassed because you don't know the answer. I think the answer is, I don't know, but let's go find out. And you take a breath and you pace yourself and you do the homework.
I actually sometimes end up in life-draining Facebook conversations that go on for days. The mind is willing, if only the schedule were nearly as willing. But Thank you for the suggestion.
I swear, if we could get back all the time we wasted thinking just one more comment of clarification is all it will take for the other person to represent my position, to accept what I'm trying to say, to honestly engage. All I need is one more comment in the thread and all will be right with the universe. If only that was true. I'd like to get a lot of those moments back that I wasted having these conversations. I'm not saying they're all wasted, but sometimes you just get caught in a feedback loop and life's too short, right?
Right. And sometimes I wish I could just, get that biology degree myself in a weekend, if only it worked that way.
It's funny. Dr. Donald Prothero he's a paleontologist and geologist, right? And he knows so much about the fossil record. I mean, he's forgotten more about fossils than I will ever know. And yet his work and his books, Evolution, What the Fossils Say, the speeches he's done online and elsewhere, have allowed me to become more educated. He shows examples and he's got images and photographs and sort of these graphs that show the chains of this and how this evolved in transitional species and blah, blah, blah. And even though I don't have a PhD, I can get that. I can understand that. I can participate in that way. So I think that's probably how we lay people should engage. We can educate ourselves to a degree and do our best to try to know more tomorrow than we know today. I don't think we have to opt out of conversations just because we don't have a degree in the field. Science is a way of living, right? Science is a way of living.
True. It's always too late to be perfect, but it's never too late to be better.
That's a T-shirt. Have a wonderful night, my friend. I appreciate your call so much. Greatly appreciated.
You too, Mr. Thinking Atheist. Good night.
Yeah. All right. Take care. See you later. Mr. Thinking Atheist. Not remotely. I'm the guy who walked around his house 10 minutes looking for his keys and they were in his hand. Yeah, that was me. We all do stupid stuff like that. Did I mention the person talking on their cell phone? Looking for their cell phone? I can't find my cell phone anywhere. They're talking on their cell phone. I swear it happens all the time. I sat down on certainly their cheap-ass sunglasses. I've just stuck them in the car seat, right? A smart person, a thinking person would have taken the sunglasses and put them on the dash or in the little holder in the console so that I wouldn't just pop into my car and inadvertently smash them. But no, I was in a hurry and I ruined the sunglasses. I mean, they're just a piece of bent metal, whatever those rims are, and then the lenses popped right out and yeah. So no, I'm not the thinker. 415, you're on the Thinking Atheist podcast. Who's this?
This is Apollo. How's it going, Seth?
I'm doing well. Apollo, like the god Apollo.
Yeah, I picked it myself just to be blasphemous.
I love it. You know, I mean, we need more gods out there. Somebody told me Seth was a god, and I just think Seth is not a god name. Like a god's name needs to be badass and imposing and
Seth
sound
is the
legendary.
name of the god who's looking for better knowledge.
Did you just make that up?
Maybe. Yes.
Okay. You know what? After this call, I'm going to go look up the god Seth and find out what that's about. But anyway, forgive me for the digression, Apollo. Idea. What's on your mind? What do you want to talk about?
No, that's all right. Oh, Seth, I didn't think I would get in today, and this is really big for me. I went to a private Christian school for 10 years where I was abused, not sexually, but sort of psychologically, by the rest of like the whole school, the faculty, the students. I was bullied hardcore. And then I left the school and I kind of forgot about it for about 10 years. And then about 6 weeks ago, one of our former students, like one of the Golden Child football players, star student, everybody loved him. He wrote an article looking back, or a blog post looking back on his time at Coal Valley and realizing that the school was kind of a toxic environment. And he was hit with stories. I mean, so many people contacted him and told him their stories of abuse. There was a girl in my class, my grade, who was raped when she was 12. And 2 years later, another student in that same class was raped by a 14-year-old, or was raped at 14. And she was told by the school superintendent that if she went to the authorities, no one would believe her. We're now in a position where we can come back to the school and say, hey, you are mistreating your students and you need to change. And we're trying to negotiate change with this school. And so I asked sort of the leader of our group if I could call in tonight and maybe spread the word about it. We're really just trying to get some visibility and some traction to it. It's been a really surreal experience.
It's the Catholic Church all over again. I mean, it's just horrifying. I'm so sorry that, we just saw the article come out about the Baptist Church and the cover-up of rape and sexual abuse within the Baptist organization. I think it was Southern Baptist.
I should clarify. This is not sexual abuse. That we don't have any stories
I heard the word rape.
Abuse perpetrated. Rape, other students raping students and not seeing any punishment for it.
Wow. Okay.
So student on student rape. So the teachers were there was not physical abuse, there was not sexual abuse from the faculty, but when there was sexual and sometimes physical abuse from students upon other students, it wasn't dealt with properly. The kid who raped my classmate was expelled for 3 months and then allowed to attend the next year.
Oh my God. Well, how can we help you? It sounds to me like from what you say, right? You're going to shine the light, and where there's light, there's heat. So you want to kind of turn the heat up.
Yeah.
But how can we assist you?
The biggest thing we're trying to do, and the goal of our movement, is to have a loud enough voice between all of us that parents see our stories before looking at the school website, right? We want to be the first thing that comes up in the Google search. Like, you want to send your kid to Coal Valley Christian in Idaho, maybe don't. Maybe look at us. Maybe look at this website. We have a website called, it's on medium.com. Let me grab I'm getting all nervous.
That's fine.
Medium.com. It's medium.com/Cole, COLE -Valley -speaks. We've got interviews, from a bunch of old students, former students. I think we might have a teacher or two who is a former teacher who's come in and done interviews. We're talking about what steps are next and how we can try and make a better environment for the students that are currently in that school.
Okay, so for clarity, are we talking about the psychological abuse that comes with things like hell teaching, or was it that they were just berating the students and mistreating them? I mean, what are we charging them here?
We're charging them with a bunch of stuff. We're a bullying rate that is off the charts. We had students, when new students would come to the school, classmates of theirs would sit them down and say, these are the students we don't talk to. These are the students we don't play with. They have policies. I mean, obviously, a religious school, they're telling you that, the biblical flood actually happened. They're teaching verifiably false things about world history and about science. But on top of it, they have these super extreme chastity, purity. I'm trying to think of the word.
I know exactly what you're talking about.
They have a purity policy where girls who are going through puberty and can't control what they look like are told that they're being distracting towards boys and that they're a nuisance and a distraction and putting them in, honestly, big, baggy, shameful clothes for anybody who was breaking the dress code. We had they're literally in the handbook section right now. The school's policy on homosexuality is if you are a homosexual, if your parents are homosexual, or if you support homosexuals, you can be expelled from the school.
Well, if I may interject quickly.
If you're gay. Yeah.
Well, I think the words you're looking for are modesty culture.
Yes.
But if I may, and I'm not saying it's right, I despise it, but you just described a huge percentage of fundamentalist private schools in the United States.
Yes, we're not trying to convince the people who want their children to be in that sort of environment. We're trying to get to the parents who find out that their child was suicidal when they attended that school. We're trying to get to the parents who didn't know we were being abused in this school. We're trying to make sure that the people who don't want their children to grow up traumatized and because of that probably leave the faith, we're trying to get those people people's attention so that we can say, hey, if you send your kid to the school, they're probably going to be traumatized on the other side of it. We're trying to work with the school on implementing some policy changes so that students like myself aren't hit with, oh, I didn't realize that the reason you were crying during that one church meeting, was because you had been raped. I didn't realize that you had tried to commit suicide at the same time that you were telling me to not commit suicide. We don't want kids attempting suicide feeling like there's no way out for them while they're in that school.
Let's back up just for a second, Apollo. Hang on just a second. When we're dealing with sexual assault, this is a police matter. I mean, this is something that if somebody didn't call the cops then, they should be all over it now. This is a bell that needs to be rung and loudly and immediately. And you probably have already heard this and done this, but having a website up is not really where I would begin on that score. Beyond that, you have just described most fundamentalist religious private schools, including the ones I was raised in. There was a modesty culture. Like the girls couldn't wear jeans. They measured skirt length. They had these lessons about purity. There were hell threats. They showed us films about eternal torture and all those types of things. Those are part of the culture that many of these parents have signed their kids up for. I love the idea, though, that if there are people who have no idea what they signed up for, they just thought, hey, we need a good school for little Timmy, and they don't know, what they're in for, that they be warned and that be fleshed out.
Yes.
In fact, I can link that website in the description box of this broadcast. Give them the domain again, if you would.
It is, I believe medium, like medium, like small, medium, large.com/Cole, COLE -Valley-Speak. So it's 3 separate words. And honestly, if you type Cole Valley Speaks into Google, there's a pretty good chance that it'll just pop right up.
I'm trying to think of my parents. I mean, I'm not talking about the assault, which again, I think the authorities need to be spoken to and now, and like yesterday, like last year. But as far as
we are working on legal stuff.
Okay. All right, good. Beyond that, I wonder if my mother and father had seen what you had just described on a website. They might have been like, oh, great, a biblical environment for our child. And it's tragic when we think about it like that, isn't it?
It is. And on the other side of it, however, are people like my own mother who said, if this site had existed 10 years ago, I would have never sent you into that school because I had an opinion that you would be in a healthier, happier, less toxic environment going to a school with Christians than going to a public school because her experience in public school was being bullied.
Oh, I just want to hug your mom. Just give that woman a great big squeeze from me, would you? And I'll go ahead
I will.
For those interested, I will put the link in the description box. And if there's, if our people can come and help support you in that endeavor, maybe they'll look at the possibility of doing the same for schools they consider to be doing some damage. And I mean, this is a conversation we certainly need to have. These are young, impressionable kids who often don't have advocates out there. And I'm so thankful that you are an advocate for them, Apollo. I really do appreciate you.
Seth, thank you so much for listening to me and giving me a small second on your broadcast to platform and sort of raise awareness for what we're trying to do. We're not necessarily of the opinion that we should eradicate religious schools, but we do think that there are things that can be done to make those schools less awful for certain people.
That's a nice way of phrasing it. Wouldn't it be nice to live in a world that was just less awful? Oh, I would take that, wouldn't you, my friend?
Toxic. Yeah. I think meeting people with nuance and meeting people, we're not running out to our former abusers and saying you're awful people, you're terrible, you need to shut down, burn the school to the ground. We're saying here's what you can do to improve. Please improve.
I appreciate the work you're doing, my friend, and thanks for calling the show. Have a good one.
Thank you so much, Seth. Have a good one.
All right, I'm going to take a real short break. And here during the break, I'm going to do a little recon and try to find the information on Seth the God. Because someone sent me something. Seth was either a superhero or a god of some kind, and I just sort of shook my head. I'm going to find that real fast, and we'll talk about that and take more of your calls after this. My wonderful, lovely, precious, amazing patrons get a commercial-free broadcast. They get it early every single week, and I'm hugging every one of you if you are a patron. And if you're not, please consider becoming one at patreon.com/Seth Andrews. Okay, I just before the break was speaking to a caller, a young man named Apollo, and we were talking about the gods. The badass gods, and why God names should sound badass, right? They should be imposing and sound like, you want to mess with it. He or she is a god. And someone had told me that Seth was a god. Well, I looked it up. It is actually Set, S-E-T, also translated Setesh, Sutek, Setek, or Suti. There's a wiki page for this and a photograph, and I look a little bit like Ra, I think. Seth is a god of chaos, the desert, storms, disorder, violence, and foreigners in ancient Egyptian religion. In ancient Greek, the god's name is given as Seth. Seth had a positive role when he accompanies Ra on his solar boat to repel Apep, the serpent of chaos. Well, you're damn straight about that. We can't have Apep slithering around here spreading chaos. We've got to pair up and we've got to go out and do battle for the cause of good, justice, and righteousness. In the Osiris myth, Seth was portrayed as the usurper. Seth killed and mutilated his own brother, Osiris. So this is not good. No, this is not good. Osiris, his wife Isis, reassembled his corpse and resurrected her dead husband long enough to conceive his son and heir, Horus. All right, hang on just a second. Hang on, hold on, hang on. All right, Seth kills Osiris, his brother. Osiris, his wife, wants a child. So she stitches the corpse of Osiris back together and resurrects him long enough to get pregnant. And then the child, Horus, seeks revenge upon me. Oh, that's a movie. Or if it's not, it ought to be. All right, well, fine. I learned something new today. Don't mess with Seth. Unless, of course, you are the son of a once murdered, then stitched together and resurrected guy who, oh, never mind. Never mind. Let us, my friends, go back to the switchboard as you choose the topics, and we take your calls. Area code 570, you're on the Thinking Atheist podcast. Who's this?
Hey, Seth, this is Rick.
What's going on, Rick? How's your world?
Oh, not too bad. It's not too bad. Hey, I've been wanting to call in here for quite a while. Just say thank you for the work you do. I think it's very much needed. And, as far as, you're an activist for atheism, or being atheist. And kind of hard for me to explain here, but I used to kind of want to be a Christian. Does that sound funny?
No, not at all. I understand it completely. I've heard a lot, in fact.
I started listening to you, I think it was about a year ago, okay? I had always wanted to, I guess, be a part of that group, believe it or not.
Which group? The religious group?
Yeah. And there was always this skeptic in me that always just cautioned me. And then it's just weird. I ran across your podcast, and I seen the Thinking Atheist on there, and I had always thought in my brain from religious people that is an evil thing. I just found this nuts.
Oh, I'm
Anyways,
evil.
Now,
No, I am so sorry for derailing your comment there. I hear it quite a bit from time to time. People are like, "You're an atheist and you're evil." Usually, it's on Twitter, but you at that point found it ridiculous that somebody would see this community, this show, and its host as being evil. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
I don't think it's weird at all. I mean, there are some atheists who will, they'll really be tough on those who say they miss religion. And I think it's important to provide context, and you can tell me if this resonates with you. But if you think about all the things that the church does and does well. Now, I'm not saying it's all human beings doing it. So it's something that is it's not necessarily a religious exercise, but we're talking about a community of people who come together and enjoy communal music and have coffee together on Sundays, and they're visiting each other in the hospital, and they have in place a mechanism that helps to make sense of the senselessness of this world, the insanity of this world. They can just sort of lean back and feel like they're taken care of, and there's a higher power, and there's a purpose for everything, and one day all suffering will be eliminated, and they'll be reunited with all the loved ones they lost. And there's a tremendous number of branches on that tree that I find that many people find attractive, and it's understandable why. Yeah. I think it's just that some of us have decided we would rather live a harder truth than a happy fantasy. But don't beat yourself up for ever missing what it was in your life. There is a natural attraction for many people to those types of things. I think maybe the first step is to try to replicate some of it, at least the community aspect of it in your own life as best you can. Sadly, we atheists aren't always great at community, but I think we're getting better.
Yeah. Well, I definitely do consider myself an atheist. Well, actually, an agnostic atheist. And it's just a weird thing, though.
Would you ever go back, my friend? Would you ever plug back into the Matrix?
The thing is, I wasn't ever completely plugged into it. There was a part of me that said, question this. And it was weird. I wanted to, but I could never fully get in that. You know what I mean?
You were a critical thinker early, so I think religions probably were never on the table for you. I kind of envy you. I wish I'd been working it out in that way when I was younger. Instead, I just sort of sat back and coasted. I was so intellectually lazy. So it's understandable that you figured it out sooner than a great many of us did. And there is community out there, and we do have your back. And honestly, it's still a beautiful life. I hope you feel that way. It's amazing to be alive.
Seth, I see that more now than ever. It's so clear to me. Every day we get on this planet is the most beautiful thing you'll ever receive.
Well, you encourage me, my friend, and I hope this show and community encourages you, and I very much appreciate you. So thanks for calling today.
You're welcome. Hey, thank you again, Seth, for the great work that you're doing. It's really appreciated, and I'll keep on listening.
All right. It's an honor, my friend. Thanks again.
Thank you.
Lila sent me a message when I put the notice out for the show. She said, what, if any, change have you seen in the conversation between theists and atheists since you started in activism? Are you more open to conversation? Have the challenges changed? Or do you still get the same things like you're just angry at God? Well, there's no pat answer for it, but I have changed. When I first came out, I was pretty hot. And all the time I'd wasted, and I was frustrated that nobody was listening. But when I was talking to believers, I just kept hitting a brick wall, and it's because I was always talking about the data. I was always talking about the facts and people, and I was coming at them with these sort of challenges to, why do you believe this? And how do you sustain that? And how would you support this? And how can you prove that? And I never changed anybody's mind. Nobody ever reversed their position. Most of them, in fact, if not most, all doubled down, and they said, hey, I'm going to believe what I'm going to believe, and you're just an angry atheist, blah, blah, blah. And, the backfire effect kicks in. And over the course of time, I realized I was spinning my wheels and only frustrating myself, mostly. And so my tactics obviously have changed with the rise of street epistemology. I've been using a lot more questions. I've been trying to act more compassionately, which is something that we desperately need all over the world. And every time I say we need to be more compassionate and we need to be more reasonable and we need to calm ourselves and de-escalate and let's try to go out and change minds, there's a faction of people who are like, they can never be reached. Their minds can never be changed. The only thing we can do is crush them under our boot. And then they spend all, the next half hour justifying why they call everybody names and freak out and dehumanize them. And I'm so weary and tired of it. I think a great many people are weary and tired of it. I just gave a speech in 3 cities in Texas that talks a little bit about this. Even the people we consider to be awful people, they came to these conclusions for a reason. And there are examples of people who were reasoned out of bad ideas. I'm a great example. And so I'm not ready to give up on humanity and burn it all down. I'm just not. And so for that reason, the temperature of much of what I have done has become more about trying to see human beings first. And then we talk about the ideas. We talk about humanity first. We find out what we might have in common. We try to connect in meaningful ways, and then we can get into belief, how beliefs are formed, why we believe what we believe, without demonizing the other person. And, the temperature of my work has changed. It's become softer, more compassionate. I hope my voice certainly has. And it's not always easy. Sometimes and I enjoy my fair share of satire and ridicule and lampooning ridiculousness and all that. And I'll do that from time to time when I feel it's necessary. But how many wasted opportunities were there where I insulted or lampooned or mocked someone that might have been engaged in a way that changed how they see the world? So I don't know. I think, it's an evolution. It's a process. This is sort of a living process. And we're all doing the best we can. I hope we're doing the best we can to try to find what's effective, use that, and try to change the world. I have on the switchboard area code 217. You're on the Thinking Atheist podcast. Who's this?
Hey, Seth. This is Jamie.
Jamie, what's
calling
up?
From Illinois.
Wonderful.
Hey, I actually just wanted to ask you about Linus.
Oh, Linus. He's my son.
What kind of breed is he?
We think he's a Maltipoo, which is like Maltese and Poodle, but some people think they see Shih Tzu in him, and I don't know. He's Baskin Robbins. He's 31 flavors, right? But he's this. We have so fallen for this dog. I post photographs of him on social media, and people, they're falling for him as well. He's like 5.8 pounds of irresistible, and I was joking that. Like Natalie bought him a raincoat. Like she bought him someone crocheted a couple of sweaters. A beautiful listener named Claire for the cold weather already crocheted sweaters for him. Natalie got him looks like a down coat, and he got a raincoat. He just looks pathetic in it. It's the one piece of clothing he doesn't like. He loves all the other ones. She got him booties because whenever it gets hot in the summer, we're worried about the hot sidewalk. So she's got little boots she wants to put on his paws, And of course, I'm like, this is like another grandchild. You now have another furry grandchild. He is bonded to us in a way that beyond what we could have ever hoped. And we are a family. So it's been good medicine for us. I hope you've enjoyed us posting about Linus on social media.
Absolutely. He's adorable.
You got any little
good luck with him.
Fur babies in your own life?
Yeah, I posted a couple pictures to your comments. His name's Mr. Scruffles. He's a Yorkie.
Oh. Let me ask you something about the Yorkie. Because we had Rat Dog.
Yeah.
She was impossible to potty train. She was so freaking stubborn. And so willful. And the only upside was at, 3.5 pounds, the messes were small. But did you have the same problem with your Yorkie?
Not so much. We actually had lived in a small apartment, and we used the training pee pads. And he was really good with that. And then we moved out here to Illinois. We're originally from New Jersey, and we moved out here to Illinois at my parents' house, and he goes outside all the time and no problems.
You won the lottery. Rat Dog was just like, she'd pee inside just because she felt like she owned the place. Now, Linus, that dog for 5.8 pounds is a tanker. He's like the Exxon Valdez. Well, it's a bad example. But he loves to go. We'll go out and walk, and we'll walk the neighborhood, and he's pretty much already potty trained. It's just amazing. But he's rescued. He has a brand new chapter, a brand new beautiful life, and he's now already got fans all over the world. It's been an amazing thing. So thanks for asking.
Hey, one more quick question. How's the Henry vehicle coming along?
Oh my goodness, we are so close. They purchased let me back up. For those who may not know, after Henry, the first of 2 dogs we lost in 2 weeks, Henry died on the operating table. We did a fundraiser. This community raised almost $35,000 for the Humane Society of Tulsa, which rescued Henry. And they needed a van desperately to rescue animals around the state. And so we were hoping for $15,000. This community raised $34,000+. The van has been purchased. It's beautiful. It's big. Their target is to rescue 3,500 dogs in the state of Oklahoma this year alone. The graphics are underway. In fact, I just sent the images of Henry and Rat Dog, and the images are going to be placed on the van they call it a wrap, I guess, is when they go all the way around the vehicle. And it should be unveiled here in the next week or two, and I will have pictures and video for everybody. I think they might even do some kind of christening or unveiling or ceremony when they finally get the thing done, and they say we get to take the first ride with Linus. So we're very honored, very excited, and as soon as it's ready, I promise you, I will let everybody know, and I'll get the pictures and video out there, okay?
All right, thanks. You have a great night.
All right, you take care of yourself. Bye-bye.
Bye.
I know this sounds cliche, but after we lost Tootsie and Henry, we were just in such a bad place, grieving more than I've grieved for even some family members, for friends, people I've lost in my life. They were just so interwoven into everything we did. We were in such a dark place and so heartbroken. And Linus, while we rescued him, in many ways, he rescued us. I mean, he lifted our spirits, and he has reinvigorated our lives, and he has brought so much love into this home. And I know it sounds like a Hallmark movie, but it's been absolutely true. It's been absolutely true. And maybe there's a lesson there. We need more rescue in this crazy world. Let's go out and do some rescuing whenever and wherever we can. Thank you so much for listening. Thanks for being a part of this community. Thank you for being such a positive part of my life. I will see you back here next time, and we'll do it again on the Thinking Atheist podcast. See you later.
Follow The Thinking Atheist on Facebook and Twitter. For a complete archive of podcasts and videos, products like mugs and t-shirts featuring the Thinking Atheist logo, links to atheist pages and resources, and details on upcoming Free Thought events and conventions, log on to our website, thethinkingatheist.com.